Evan Hale never believed a single moment could change the direction of a life. Until it happened to him right when he stepped into Maple Ridge for the first time in 3 years. He had barely shut the car door, barely inhaled the thin Colorado air, when the feeling hit him sharp, sudden, like someone had pressed a hand to his chest and pushed. He wasn't the same man who left, and he knew this town wasn't the same place he once escaped from. What he didn't expect was how fast the past would rise to meet him. It happened 5 minutes later. In the warm glow of Ridge Cafe, the first place he always visited when he came home. He walked through the door, the bell above it chiming softly, and the smell of cinnamon and coffee wrapped around him. It felt familiar and safe, but his heartbeat wasn't calm at all. Because right then, he saw Hermiah Brooks sitting at the corner table. Hands wrapped around a mug like she was trying to warm something deeper than her fingers. Her hair was a little shorter than he remembered, her posture more guarded. But her eyes had the same gentle warmth that once made him feel seen in a way no one else ever had. He didn't get more than 3 seconds to take her in, because another voice cut through the cafe, a sharp, unexpage. A sharp, bright voice he could recognize in any crowd. Harper Lane, standing in line, laughing at something the barista said, her energy filling the room the way it always did. Harper didn't blend into spaces. She took them over with the force of a wildfire, bold, confident, magnetic. The kind of presence Evan once tried to keep up with, even when he knew he wasn't built like her. To women. 2 stories. 2 unfinished chapters of his life, and they were both right here, breathing the same air, sharing the same room, looking so different from each other, yet connected by one thing: him. For a moment, Evan forgot how to move. His hand stayed on the doorknob, his pulse loud enough that he felt it in his throat. He knew this situation was coming the way a storm announces itself long before the clouds arrive. But knowing didn't make the reality easier, because he had left something behind with Maya, something tender and deep-hand something. Else with Harper, something bright and unsteady that he never fully learned how to hold. Now the 2 parts of his past were standing in the same room, and he wasn't ready for any of it. Maya looked up first. Her eyes widened, soft surprise spreading over her face. That one look made him feel every mile he had put between them, every message he didn't send, every memory he tried to fold up and tuck away. She didn't smile, not fully, but her expression was open enough to let him know she wasn't angry, just unsure, maybe even hopeful. And that tugged at something he had buried deep. Harper noticed him a second later. She turned, eyebrows lifting as she studied him in a quick, sharp sweep. Then she let out a small laugh, not mocking, but not gentle either. "Well," she said loud enough for half the cafe to hear, "look who finally remembered where home is." Her tone was playful, but it carried an old hurt hidden underneath. Harper was like that. She never let pain show unless she chose to. Greetings. 2 pulls on his heart. And in the center of it all, Evan felt something he had never dared say out loud. Part of him had always wanted both. Not romantically at the same time, not in a way that broke rules or morals, but in the sense that both of them held pieces of him he could never combine or replace. Maya was calm mornings. Harper was restless nights. Maya was the safe choice he never truly honored. Harper was the dangerous one he never fully understood. How was he ever supposed to choose? He took a step forward, then stopped when he caught the quick exchange of glances between the 2 women. It was subtle, but he felt it like a shift in temperature. I made a soft uncertainty meeting Harper's sharp curiosity. They weren't enemies. They weren't friends. They were 2 people who once stood close enough to him to feel like they were orbiting the same sun. Even if they never said it out loud, Maya stood slowly, smoothing her sweater. "Evan," she said, voice quiet and steady. "You're back." It wasn't a question. More like a thought she wasn't sure she should speak. Harper crossed her arms, leaning one hip against the counter. "Didn't think you'd show your face here before Christmas," she said. The playful edge was still there, but her eyes told a different story. She had questions, and she expected answers. Evan cleared his throat, but the words tangled. He felt like a visitor in his own story, watching it unfold from the outside. He nodded at them both before forcing out, "Hey, yeah, I'm here for a bit." "A bit," Harper repeated. "That's specific." Maya shot her a quick look, not annoyed but gently reminding her not to push. Harper ignored it, which didn't surprise Evan at all. Before he could respond, Maya gestured to the empty chair at her table. "You can sit with us," she said. "If you want." Harper raised an eyebrow. "Unless you're planning on running out again." She softened it with a half smile, but the meaning stayed. Evan inhaled slowly. He knew what sitting down meant: opening up old wounds, facing conversations he had avoided, revisiting choices he didn't make, mistakes he didn't admit. The last thing he wanted to do was hurt either of them again. But walking away would be worse. It would prove Harper right. It would break something fragile in Maya that he never wanted to crack again. So he sat. The silence that followed wasn't loud, but it was full of unfinished words, full of memories, full of emotions none of them knew how to name. Harper leaned back in her chair, tapping her fingers on the table. "So," she said lightly, "how's the big city life? Still taking pictures of sunsets and pretending it's a career?" Maya shot her a glare. "Harper, what?" Harper shrugged. "I'm being nice." Evan smiled despite the tension. "Some things never changed." "It's good," he answered. "Busy. Different." "Better than here?" Harper asked, chin lifting slightly. He paused. "Not better, just different." Maya looked down at her coffee, her voice barely above a whisper. "You didn't say goodbye when you left." That hit harder than he expected. Straight, honest, and painful in a way that only Maya could express. She never raised her voice to hurt someone. She just spoke the truth and let it land wherever it needed to. Evan swallowed. "I know," he said. "I shouldn't have left that way, you think?" Harper muttered. But the anger in her tone wasn't fresh. It was old and softened by time and disappointment. Evan looked at her. "You weren't exactly talking to me, either." Harper shrugged again, but this time the movement wasn't confident. It was a shield. "I don't chase people who are already halfway out the door." Maya glanced between them, a quiet sadness touching her expression. Evan wondered how much she knew about what happened between him and Harper, how close they once got, how quickly things fell apart when fear and confusion took over. Maya wasn't naive. She probably knew enough. The three of them sat in a tension that felt both uncomfortable and strangely comforting, like the first step toward a conversation none of them wanted but all of them needed. "So why are you back?" Maya asked gently. Evan hesitated. The real reason wasn't simple. He didn't come home for the holidays or for a break from work. He came home because something in his life had shifted and he didn't know how to name it yet. Something felt unfinished. Something felt wrong. Something felt lonely in a way he didn't want to carry anymore. But he couldn't say all that, not yet. So he gave the safest truth. "I needed some time," he said. "Time to figure things out." Harper nodded slowly, her expression unreadable. "Well," she said softly, "you picked an interesting place to start." Maya looked at him again, her eyes searching his in a way that made his chest tighten. "Whatever you're trying to figure out," she said quietly, "I hope you find it this time." Her words were warm, but there was a distance in them too, like she was protecting herself from being pulled back into something she hadn't healed from. Evan felt it, and it hurt more than he expected. He glanced between them, Maya with her calm, steady presence, Harper with her fire and sharp humor, and for the first time in years, he understood why leaving had torn him apart. His heart had never learned how to choose between two feelings that were so different, yet both so real. As they sat together, something settled inside him. Not clarity, not peace, but recognition. The story he left unfinished was still alive. The emotions he tried to bury were still breathing. And the choices he avoided were waiting for him now, sitting across the table in the form of two women who once cared about him in ways he wasn't ready to handle. He didn't know how this would end. He didn't know what he was ready to say. But he knew one thing with painful certainty. He couldn't run this time. And the moment he realized that, the story truly began one. That would test every part of his heart and force him to face the truth he had avoided for years. A truth he felt deep in his chest. Even if he wasn't ready to say it out loud yet, he didn't want just one. He never had. And that was the problem. Evan didn't expect the snow to fall so fast that evening, but as he stepped out of the cafe, tiny white flakes danced in the glow of the streetlights and stuck to his hair. The cold made his thoughts sharper, clearer, like the chill was forcing honesty into every corner of his mind. He had just sat with Maya and Harper for over an hour, and he hadn't spoken half of what he felt. And yet, staying silent now seemed impossible. He had returned for a reason, and every step he took through the quiet streets of Maple Ridge reminded him of it. Maya walked beside him, her scarf tucked tightly around her neck, eyes distant yet alert. Harper followed just a few steps behind, her hands shoved into her coat pockets, moving with that easy confidence that always made Evan feel off balance. It wasn't the first time he'd been caught in this triangle, and he doubted it would be the last. The town was quiet, the streets nearly empty, but the tension between them made the world feel smaller. Like the three of them existed in a bubble where only unfinished conversations could breathe. "Do you remember the old lake trail?" Maya asked suddenly, voice soft. It startled him, like she'd thrown a stone into calm water. He looked at her, surprised. "The one behind Miller's farm." "That's the one," she said, smiling faintly. "You used to drag me out there for morning runs when it was freezing, just to prove I could keep up with you." Evan laughed quietly. "I remember. You hated it." "I didn't hate it," she said quickly, but the twinkle in her eyes betrayed her words. "I just didn't want to admit it was fun." Harper snorted from behind them. "You two were ridiculous. And you," she said, pointing at Evan with a mittened finger, "ran away before you finished anything, remember?" Evan winced. "You still hold that against me?" "No," Harper said softly, stepping closer. "Not really. But it matters, you running. Back then, it hurt." He swallowed. He knew it hurt. And somehow, hearing it now, after all these years, hurt more than he expected. The snow kept falling, quiet and relentless, blanketing the streets, hiding footprints, hiding mistakes. Maybe the world was giving him a chance to start fresh if he dared. "I didn't know how to stay," Evan said finally. "I thought leaving would make things easier. It didn't. It just left a hole." Maya's eyes softened, but Harper's gaze sharpened, like she was trying to read the words between his words. Evan realized then that neither of them was just waiting for him to explain. They were waiting for him to feel. And feeling wasn't easy when both held pieces of his heart. They walked in silence for a few minutes, the crunch of snow under boots the only sound. Evan's thoughts swirled. He wanted to tell them both everything, but the truth was heavier than he imagined. He wanted Maya's calm, Harper's fire, and he didn't want to lose either. He had left one behind once. He wasn't ready to lose another. Not now. Not ever. The lake trail appeared before them, frozen and shimmering under the moonlight. Trees leaned over the path, their branches heavy with snow. Evan stopped, taking in the scene, memories rushing in. He remembered racing down this path with both of them, laughter echoing in the crisp air. He had been careless, young, convinced that leaving wouldn't matter. But it had mattered. It mattered every day he was gone. "Do you want to go down to the lake?" Maya asked. Evan nodded. Harper gave a slight shrug and followed. The three of them moved together, footsteps crunching in unison. A rhythm that reminded Evan of something he had almost forgotten how it felt to belong. When they reached the frozen lake, Evan noticed the ice had formed delicate patterns across the surface. He crouched down, tracing one with his gloved finger, feeling the cold bite. "It's beautiful," he murmured. Maya knelt beside him. It always was. Harper stood at the edge, arms crossed, watching them. "You're both sentimental," she said lightly. But Evan caught the soft note in her voice that betrayed something deeper, something he wanted to hear, but wasn't sure if he deserved. Evan's chest tightened. "I should have told you both how much you meant to me," he said. "Not in words I half-heartedly threw around, but really." Honestly, Maya looked down at her hands. We never expected honesty, she whispered. We expected excuses. And yet, Harper said quietly, taking a step closer, you're here now. So maybe that counts for something? It did count for something? More than he could explain. He wanted to hold on to this moment, to feel it fully. Because he knew the next words he spoke would shape the rest of their relationships forever. He didn't want regrets this time. He didn't want to run. He wanted everything he had missed. But the truth wasn't simple. He couldn't choose with words alone. His heart ached for the calm warmth of Maya's presence, the way she listened, the way she understood him without judgment. And yet it also longed for Harper's fire, the way she challenged him, the way she made life feel thrilling and alive. He had wanted both once and lost one, and now he was faced with the chance to hold on to both. If he dared risk everything, Evan took a deep breath, feeling the cold air fill his lungs and sharpen his resolve. I didn't want just one of you, he said finally. I wanted both. I didn't know how to say it before, and maybe I still don't, but it's the truth. I've never wanted one without the other. Not then. Not now. Maya looked at him, eyes wide, lips parted slightly. Harper's hands dropped from her pockets, her stance softening, her face betraying the same surprise he felt in his chest. You can't. Want both? Harper said after a long pause. Her voice trembled a little, a mix of disbelief and longing. It doesn't work that way. Maybe it can, Evan whispered. Maybe it's worth trying. The air around them felt electric, not in a dramatic, flashy way, but like the kind of energy that comes when long-suppressed feelings finally meet the light. He could see it in Maya's eyes, in Harper's gaze. Both of them were holding pieces of him that he couldn't ignore, pieces he had tried to bury but never could. And now, standing there, he realized that time had given him something precious, the chance to speak the truth without fear. The silence stretched for a few moments, heavy but necessary. Then Maya knelt beside him, placing a hand over his gloved one. It won't be easy, she said softly, and I don't know if it's even possible. But I know I've never stopped caring. Harper took a tentative step forward, resting a hand lightly on his shoulder. I don't know if this is how it's supposed to happen, she admitted, but I've never stopped feeling either. I thought leaving would fix it, but it didn't. Evan's chest tightened so much it was almost painful. He had wanted both for years, and now, by some miracle of timing and honesty, both were right in front of him, open to listening, open to feeling, willing to risk the uncertainty for the chance of connection. He looked at them, really looked, and felt a strange calm wash over him. The past was no longer something he was running from. It was alive, present, and messy, and that was exactly how love should feel. Not neat, not convenient, but real. I don't know what the future looks like, he said finally, voice low but steady. I just know I don't want to run anymore. Not from either of you, and not from what this could be. Maya's hand squeezed his lightly, a quiet reassurance. Harper's fingers brushed against his in a subtle, unspoken acknowledgement. The three of them stood together, snow falling around them, and for the first time, Evan felt like the world was big enough to hold all the love he had tried to hide. No one spoke for a while. Words weren't needed. The silence carried understanding, regret, hope, and longing all at once. It was a fragile balance, but a balance nonetheless. And Evan knew that whatever happened next, this night would mark the start of something new, a choice between two paths. But the possibility of walking forward with both. If they were willing to take the risk together, he looked up at the stars above the frozen lake, feeling the cold nip his cheeks. I can't promise it will be perfect, he admitted. I can't promise we won't stumble. But I can promise I won't run again. Not from you. Not from this. Maya smiled softly, a warmth that contrasted with the chill around them. That's all anyone can ask for, she said. Harper nodded, a small, genuine smile breaking through her usual teasing demeanor. Then maybe we can figure it out, she said, voice quiet but firm. One step at a time. Evan exhaled, feeling a weight lift off his shoulders. It wasn't certainty. It wasn't neat. But it was real. The chance to try to love honestly. And to be present with both people who had shaped him in ways he couldn't ignore it was more than he had dared hope for when he left Maple Ridge years ago. For the first time in a long time, he felt alive. Not just surviving, not just existing, but truly living. And as the snow continued to fall, the lake reflecting the soft moonlight, Evan realized that some truths were worth the risk. Some hearts were worth holding, even if it meant holding more than one dot, and for the first time. Evan smiled freely, not because the choice was easy, but because he finally understood that love didn't have to be simple to be real.